Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first episode of the Round Table with Brian Zimmerman. I'm Sarah Blessing. Here at Project Next Media, our goal is to make your life better. And we do that by giving you lots of great mental health tips and also by uniting our communities. We're really tired of the media networks, news networks, social media, trying to divide us, make us fear our neighbors. And that's just not the reality. Really, we have more in common than what separates us. So join us today as we talk about Brian and his incredible life, and we're going to dive into his childhood. Why don't you tell us first why you chose the title The Round Table?
The title, The Round Table, I really was trying to think of something that was all inclusive, that would bring everyone to the table, because everyone has something positive and negative that they can bring to the table that everyone else can take away from. And, way back when, thousands of years ago, knights would have a round table, and regardless of their rank or whatever, when they came to that round table, they came as equals. That's why there's no head of the table. It was very much everyone's opinion is heard. What should we do to for a better course of action? And it was just a really powerful place that brought unity and solved a lot of problems by having that all inclusive. Everyone has a place.
I really like that
table.
Respect.
Yeah.
Listen to people even when you might disagree, because you can still learn something from them, and then maybe you can come. Yeah. Both of you can come to a better place.
Right.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel that with us too, because we don't always have the same political views, but we can talk and learn from each other. That's nice.
Right.
So if you missed Brian's other episode that we did last Thursday, you can go and check it out. He kind of summarizes his whole life, and now we're going to break it down. We're going to try to do it in a little bit shorter segments too. And basically, your life's been pretty incredible. I'm very thankful you are alive. And and we're going to break down your childhood in this episode, which stems, I think, what happened in your childhood made it so you wanted to be in the special forces, and also so that you could handle such a stressful environment in such a competitive place with high risk type thing. So you want to break us down it?
Yeah. So again, I just want to start this off with an enormous amount of gratitude. Thank you so much for all of you out there that have tuned in, that are willing to listen. And it's important, and I appreciate you being here. All the comments, it's really been powerful for me this last week. So thank you very much. I also just want to say, before I dive in, I am not a therapist. I am not a doctor. I am not a trained psychologist. What you're gonna get is one man's perspective, looking back at his life, what he's experienced. So it's almost as if I'm in the third person, if that makes any sense. But again, this is my observation. This is what I experienced, and then the conclusions that I have come to after this entire process called life, which hopefully is only about half over. So,
and it's what you have experienced and what you are figuring out now, I think, can help a lot of people. We might not be Special Forces veterans, but we've all had a lot of struggles. Life is hard. And your tips that you've learned to get you through these intense times can help all of us. So I know I've learned a lot from you already in the last couple of weeks. So I'm excited to see what else I can learn from you. So, okay.
Yeah. So we'll just go ahead and dive in again. Like last week, I kind of did a skimming the surface. But what I really want to talk about today is really from maybe birth to my senior year of high school, and try and cover that. I think that's where the bedrock of a lot of my struggles was formed. Like I said last week, I was adopted at 13 months of age by some relatives. My biological parents were very young, 17 years of age. And so I went into the household, and not really, even at that age, I really don't remember a whole lot about when I was that young, but 3, 4, 5, I really started to build this consciousness of, okay, I'm in this house when we go to, you know, like reunions and things like that. These people want me, these people want me, these people, and so there already started to be this very much this feeling of, well, who who do I belong with? You know, who am I supposed to really be with? And so the older I got, the more questions that I began to have, even as a younger child. And it's really funny because I see my son, he's 7 years old, and from an early age, I could see him starting to work through things also. So you know, it just kind of reinforced to me that you know, kids are sponges. They notice everything, and they are very on top of what's happening in their environment. And so, what was happening in my environment was I started to notice that uh, love seemed to be very conditional based off if I did something good, if I got a good grade, if I did my chores without being asked. Those, you know, it was very good. But when I made mistakes, when I brought a bad grade home, when I talked back, when I did those things that kids do because they don't know how to process their feelings and their emotions, uh, it was it was uh, very much conditional at that point. I felt that it was. You know, punishment was generally swift and harsh. I
Was it a
know
physical punishment?
it was very much a physical punishment, and I know you know, growing up in that. Well, I'm quite a bit older than you,
Not that much older, like 3 years.
so um, corporal punishment was very much a supported uh, means of disciplining a child, and I think we've learned. Uh, I have learned, looking back since having had my own child, realizing that there is a whole lot better way to go about disciplining their children. One, so that they don't fear you. I believe fear and respect are two very different things. And I very want my child to respect me, not fear me. But in the house that I was in, it was very fear driven. So, you know, I firmly believe that any kind of physical punishment that leaves a mark on a child's body is just not the way to go about disciplining that
I
child.
just I think
Um,
it's easier to just to do that, to make the
yes,
kid
yes,
fear the
mm-hmm.
person in charge, to use physical
Right,
punishment or some other type of thing to get them to quickly realize they better do what is expected of
exactly,
them. And
exactly.
it's much harder and it takes a lot longer to explain to your child why they should behave the way they do or
Yes,
why they should. So that
yes,
takes a lot more work. But of
yes,
course, that's the healthy way. I think a
yeah,
lot of us in the 80s and earlier were kind of brought up in a more, let's get some fear in there
mm-hmm.
so that you listen quickly because I don't have time for this.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I agree 100%. It is so much more difficult to be a good parent than it is to be a not so good parent. But also, again, I think a lot of people discipline their children the way that they were disciplined. So I again, I'm not trying to throw any kind of shame towards those people, because you typically do what you learn, unless you relearn at some point in your life. You know, that's generally what
I think
happens.
that's pretty wise of you. I'm sure you didn't always feel this way, having
No,
to deal with how you were
no.
treated. I imagine having your child and then really realizing what you went and how young you were when you experienced that.
Yes,
I
yes,
think it's very wise of you that you're able to come to it in a place of love and acceptance and let the anger go
yes,
of what they've
yes,
done to you.
yes.
That helps you. It doesn't really help them, the people that shouldn't have done that to
Right,
you. It
right.
helps you find peace so that you're not clinging to this. I feel like in our
Hmm.
culture, revenge is a very popular thing that's taught you should have.
Yes.
And I think that
Hmm.
that's really toxic and
Yeah,
it doesn't lead to growth, it leads to pain. And then
yeah,
I think with the
yeah.
revenge feeling, you end up hurting more people than
Hmm.
helping,
Yeah,
especially yourself.
yeah. Absolutely. and I used to harbor an enormous amount of anger and place a lot of blame on uh, those people. But all it did was prevent me from, one, being the best parent that I could be, but two, it's also very preventative in self growth. And life is too short to harbor an enormous amount of anger and discontent for people that have wronged you. It's just, that's just not a it's not healthy. It hasn't been a healthy way for me to live.
So you're growing up, and do you know that your adopted relatives, or that the relatives that are raising you adopted you, or are you thinking that they're your parents? What's going on with that?
Right. So I guess it was about the age of 8 that I was finally told that I was adopted, and then by that time they had had a child of their own. And so it was very, at that, when you're at an early age like that, even a younger child, you recognize that the baby is the central point of a marriage, of a family, and rightfully so. They require 24/7 work, and so the the feelings that I had of already not really being able to connect with my family uh, just continued to get further and further and further away. And like I said before, there was very little trust already to begin with. I had a very traumatic experience at the age of 6 where I was. What's the best way? I was sexually abused by a member of the family, not within that household, but with a member of the family. And I remember thinking, I can't, if I go to my parents and tell them, they're going to be so angry with me because of course, in that day and age, for many parents and what is pushed on to kids, sex is a very bad thing. That's, just don't talk about it. Even the church, was very hesitant to talk about
When
it.
we just look at all the
You
all the
just,
stories that are covered up, they just covered
exactly,
it up,
yeah.
covered it up.
That's one of those things you just don't. So I didn't even go to them, to say that, because there was that lack of,
And
I
you
didn't
didn't
trust.
feel like you could trust them with that, and that they would protect
No,
you.
I did not feel protected at all. So I think that was where my my attachment just sort of really started to gain traction, and it just kept getting worse and worse from there. And which ultimately I believe it began um, to set the seeds of how a relationship is supposed to be. There was already, I could already tell there was a much greater distance between myself and my adoptive mother at the time, as opposed to with my adoptive father. He would be supportive sometimes, but I could still tell that there was much more separation between myself and my adoptive mother at the time. So already, so that experience I had when I was 6, combined with a feeling of not being nurtured or cared for or loved for, by the mother in the household, I began to learn to my relationships with females primarily was very much at arm's length. And throw on top of that, I remember the first time I ever saw a Playboy magazine. So, throw that sexual trauma in there, throw pornography into it, and throw a lack of a relationship with the mother figure in the household. And it was just a recipe for a completely skewed way of looking at relationships, of self acceptance. So,
I'm really
yeah,
sorry that happened to
yeah,
you. I know a lot of children have the same experience, and
mm-hmm,
I know a bunch of them never come out
yeah,
and say it. And I'm really proud of you, but I'm just really sorry. You
yeah,
you deserve so
yeah,
much better. 6 year old you
yeah,
deserve so much better.
yeah,
And I'm just sorry it
yeah.
happened.
It was really tough because, like I said, kids are sponges. They're learning at an incredible rate, and they're incredibly aware of their surroundings. So, so that happens. So I'm constantly, so now I'm really searching for, well, what can I do to gain acceptance? How can I prove my self-worth,
Mm-hmm.
not only to my immediate family, but uh, people that I went to school with, girls that I wanted to go on dates with. I had an amazing, amazing circle of friends growing up. And what's really tragic is I never truly felt like I was in that circle. They treated me like I was one of their own. They were very good to me, but there was that belief that, well, love can be taken away as soon as I do something that's not right.
You better be
They'll
perfect.
back away from it. They'll drop me in a second, and very much so with even when I started dating. And I hate to say this, but birds of a feather usually find each other. So myself, who is definitely damaged and searching for acceptance in some way of feeling good about myself, about providing um, other people with feeling good about them. So if I could do that, I could validate myself. And so girls that I would date are uh, hardwired idea of how to provide that was really skewed.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was never anything, that was going to last, or permanent, because you'd already started up here, and then there was nothing underneath so once you started going deep with the emotion, well, who are you? I was like, what are you talking about? Who are you? And she's like, I don't know, what are you talking about? I thought this was, and I'm sure a lot of people have experienced those same kinds of emotions, those feelings,
You
even
don't
when,
start out, you didn't start out with the base of love and acceptance and
no,
trust and you getting to
no,
be who you are.
mm-hmm,
I'm parenting twins that are 6 and then a 14-year-old. And I was reading recently that if your kids act up and are loud and are questioning things and are
mm-hmm,
wanting to know, well, why do I need to act this way? And that means they're comfortable. It's good that they're
yeah,
loud
yeah,
at
yeah,
home. It's good that they're
yeah,
being themselves. They're not
yeah,
putting on this shield so
mm-hmm,
that they get the love that they
right,
they earn. And you did not have that,
yeah,
so it makes sense that relationships are going to be hard for you.
mm-hmm, yeah,
And it's not your fault
yeah,
either. It's not your fault.
yeah,
You didn't know any better.
mm-hmm.
You're just trying to
I
survive.
was I was in survival mode. Yeah, from 13 months to age 45, I was in survival mode. Figuratively at some points, and then literally at a lot of points. So yeah, it was strange, but looking back on it now, being able to recognize that that's not right, and having my own son, one of the hardest things I ever had to do. I remember when my son was about 4 years old, and we were at the store, and he absolutely had to have this chocolate bar. He had to have it, and uh, when I told him no, it was, there was a complete come apart right there in the grocery store. But the best thing that I could have done was just let him. I did, and I just let him go on his back, sprawling around like screaming, carrying on. I had these elderly women looking at me like, "You're this is horrible what you're doing." But when he finally wore himself out, whatever it was a 5 minute marathon. Uh, he stopped. He stood up, and I said, "Son, are you okay now? Do you want to talk about it?" And he said, "I'm sorry." And he understood. There was no response. There was no physical response, because at that age, we don't know what our emotions are. We don't, what is this that I'm feeling? That's the only outlet, that they have. So, it's hard out there for a kid,
I
you
just
know?
wonder how many times you didn't have the temper tantrum that your brain needed because you
Oh,
weren't in a safe environment.
no, no.
So like our kids are
Oh,
having temper tantrums.
oh. And here's a perfect example. I would say from age 7 to probably 6 to 11, 12 years of age, I would get so angry that I would literally hold my breath. My face would get purple, and on numerous occasions, I would just pass out
Oh
from
my
holding my breath.
god.
I would internalize and hold that so much, because I knew that the repercussions of me voicing my opinion, opening up, uh, would be met with very physical and swift repercussions. And so that, talk about building the bedrock of internalizing pain, of not being able to voice that, to get that out in a healthy way. Literally a kid that would hold his breath
Wow.
until he
I'm
passed
so
out.
sorry
You
you
know,
did
and
that.
it's, but that, and I know that I'm not the only one out there. I've seen other kids as
Wow.
an adult. I've seen kids do this, whether it's on the soccer field or not pass out, but the parents telling them no, and there's no outlet than to just rage internally. So there, that's you, you learn some hard lessons, and you hope that you're able to look back at it and be like, wow.
Hearing about your
Wow.
childhood makes me understand more how you were able to handle the intense training of special forces, just
Mm,
because you
mm,
have to keep yourself so controlled. You keep that emotion in there. It makes sense that you were able to do it. And I think
mm.
about all of the people that have that skill. And I imagine a lot of them also had some issues growing up that
Yeah,
weren't allowed to be themselves or have that stability.
yeah. Yeah, when we get to the military portion, I think it's going to surprise a lot of you, uh, what I talk about, because generally all you see these days, what people just want to hear, the juicy details and the stories of war.
Mm-hmm.
And I that's not at all what I want this podcast to be about. I spent nearly 20 years in the special forces. Yes, I deployed to combat multiple times. Yes, I was involved in traumatic events. That's not the cure. Everyone knows that, who went through GWAT, Global War on Terrorism. I want to focus on how I got out of that,
Yeah.
and how it wasn't just me. It was people that had their hands on me, not letting me go, even though I didn't even know it. So I
Right.
want to focus on the solution, not so much the
Right. And
yeah,
I'm fascinated in how you were mentally able to handle it and how you've been able to mentally cope with your giant changes and
yeah,
trying to get into a healthier place.
yeah.
Okay, so we're on your childhood. Where did you find some acceptance or some attention because you can't be yourself at home? So
Right,
what's
right,
going on here?
right. So the way that I found that validation, uh, was through athletics, and particularly track and field. I loved playing team sports. I loved being around the guys, everybody, working hard towards a common goal. That being said, in track and field, I just really started to notice, sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade. Wow, I can do this. This is extremely validating. And I was searching for a way truly to validate, I think, myself, primarily to my mother at the time. And she was not, a fan of athletes. She was not the sports thing. They're overprivileged. They get what they want. Small towns treat athletes as demigods, and I won't deny that. That's true.
You needed that though. You
But
needed
I
some
needed
attention.
that. I
Yeah.
needed that, and I remember I had been doing really good, in high jump. It ended up being one of my better events. This was my eighth grade year, and I begged her, "Will you please come
No.
and watch me jump?" And she said yes. Man, I couldn't wait. I actually started to feel like, wow, she's there. Like, she wants to see me succeed. And I get out there, I'm warming up, doing the whole thing, and I'm looking around, and I can't see anywhere. And then I look out the back behind the scoreboard, because the tracks are on the football field, and I see her car parked outside the fence, and she's just sitting in the car, you know, watching. She's not going to get out. She's not going to come in and sit on the bleachers with the other parents. And it was, I think that it was at that point that I realized that relationship was never going to be a good relationship for me. And so I I just worked as hard as I could to try and validate myself to my father at the time. There was I At the beginning, I thought, wow, this is really great. But there also began to be those feelings of, well, he's told me that he's always wanted to be an athlete, and now here I am, and he's supporting me. But we have the mother figure in the picture who is saying the only reason you're supporting him is because you're living vicariously through him. So then it's like, oh well, the husband, you gotta kind of follow the lead of the wife in the house, who is wearing the pants, and what's he gonna do, go against what she's saying or support this kid?
I don't think
So
your stepmom was able to give you what you needed. I don't think she
no,
knew how to do it at
she didn't know how
all.
to do it.
And
It's not
it
her
sounds a
fault.
little bit like she might have some
it
narcissism,
it's not
sociopathic.
her
It's
fault.
something that she
Not
doesn't know
her
how to
fault
do
at
it.
all. Not her
It's
fault
just
at
so
all.
sad because you wanted it so badly and
Yeah,
you were
I
not going to
did.
get that
I
no
really
matter
did.
what. But I'm kind of glad that you
Hmm.
saw her in the car and you realized she can't give you what you need
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you were going to learn it
Hmm.
eventually. But it
Yeah,
is sad. So
yeah,
then you
yeah.
didn't get it from the stepfather and
I would he was, it was off and on, I would say, with him. He would take me places during the summer for summer track, and you know but it was, I don't, it just didn't feel uh supportive like a father was supporting. I
and I
because I
don't think he knew how
Probably
either.
not.
Yeah.
Probably not. I don't know, but I would look. It was hard to not compare myself to everyone else to see how parents were, and
Did you think something was wrong with you?
yeah, I didn't know what was
You were like, I'm not
like.
getting what
What's
these other kids' parents are getting. Something
Yeah,
must be wrong with me.
yeah,
I better be better.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It
that makes
was
sense.
it was strange. It was really, but and every Sunday, we'd go to church and we would learn what right looked like, and Sunday would be great, and then the rest of the week, it was hit or miss. So it was real. I've up until about really the last 10 years or so, I really had this conflicting relationship with God, and I really struggled because I was seeing one thing on one day, but then during the week it was not at all like God said it's supposed to be
I think a
throughout the
lot of
week.
people's relationships with God and with religion and church are skewed by what also was happening in the family, or if
Hmm.
the church was telling you something that wasn't the
Yeah,
healthiest way. Yeah, so
yeah,
I'm sure you're not alone in that. I know I
yeah,
have some issues.
yeah.
All right, so you're doing sports, you're doing
Yep.
well.
Doing sports, doing well.
What do you want to move and talk about the Zimmermans?
Yeah, yeah. So, like I said last week, Carrie and Michelle Zimmerman became a very important part of my life. Carrie, much more dad. He's my dad. So dad at a much younger age, because he was so involved with track and summer track, and I would be down at the glass factory after school, and there was always, he always had time, for me.
What
And
age
so
did you first meet him?
I first met him, I think I was about the age of maybe 11 or 12, maybe. Uh,
And he was a coach?
he was a coach. At that time, he was my summer track coach. But then once I got into high school, he was my high school coach. And he is a very successful track and field athlete, NCAA Division I decathlon champion in 1983. The same year, Jackie Joyner Kersey won the heptathlon. I mean, it just, and, just morally stable as a rock. He's a pillar of this community. And so I very much began to latch on, but I still was very hesitant to trust until finally one day after a track meet. I think I was maybe a freshman. I was probably a sophomore. And we were walking out, locking up the gate. And he's like, Brian, listen, a very dear friend of mine, Ben Peister, he and I high jumped together, brothers through it all. And he's like, Brian, the difference, we were talking about high jump and what Ben was doing, what I was doing. And he said, Brian, the difference between you and Ben is Ben trusts me without question. If when I tell him to do something and I explain to him why he needs to do it this way, he he trusts me implicitly. There is no question. He's like, if you would just do that, I can take you where you want to go. I can get you there, but you've got to trust me. And then after that, when he told me that he's the first person that I believe that I ever truly trusted and let in like I said last week, if he'd have told me to go sleep in a dumpster at night, I would have done it. If he said that's what would have made me a better track and field, it didn't matter at that point. So there began the relationship of absolute trust with him and my mom, Michelle, and my three siblings, Alex, Gretchen, and Heidi.
So how did they know that your home life was rough?
I told them. I finally opened up and told them, and
Were
it
you
was
about a
also,
sophomore then?
I would say it was before then that just through pure observation, he was able to see and was
Yeah.
around the environment, could see what was going on, and then uh, I finally opened up to him and was like, "This is what's going on. I don't know where to turn, what to do." Um, and I guess it was about my sophomore year or junior year of high school. I was asked to leave the home that I was in, and so I packed up all of my stuff and I went down and I lived with my biological mother for about 6 or 7 months, which started off okay, but there was a lot of fleshing out to do on that side of the table, the trying to make up for lost time, which wasn't working, the lack of control, all of those things. And so that quickly turned into a hurricane as well, brought on by me, not just this. I was this hurricane going through Corridon, just searching for the eye. Where's the eye? Where things can calm down. So after that, we had a detonation in that house, a really bad fight. And I told Carrie and Michelle, mom and dad, I told them the next day what was going on. And I remember dad just saying, "Hey man, here's what you need to do. You need to go home tonight. You need to pack up all of your stuff, load up the car, and you need to come up here." And so
So you could
you're ours
drive
now.
and you had
I
a
had a
car?
car. Yep, I had a car, um, which my adoptive father, he helped buy for me,
Oh, wow.
which was very giving on his part. Uh, so I went back. I loaded up that Chevelle. I think it was a 1971 Chevelle. My prized possession in the whole world. I loaded it up and I drove up and I was theirs from then on. I was theirs. I stayed there. I babysat my three siblings, younger siblings, and they took care of me. They really took care of me.
But I guess it took a while to fully trust, and you didn't.
Hmm.
I'm sure you had their love. I don't
Hmm.
know whether you completely accepted it,
That was tough.
to
Yeah.
think that you were
Yeah.
worth it too, that
Hmm.
you were worth their love
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
probably hard. Yeah, it makes.
It was tough, but that's why action is so much more valuable than words, because your actions are going to show what your intent is or how you're feeling. And so it's okay to be upset with something that I've done. I've disappointed mom and dad countless times, and I'll disappoint them again, but I know at the end of the day, regardless of what happens, their love for me is unconditional, and that's what every child should feel for their parents. um,
So I think that's a good place to stop. Is there anything else you want to cover on this episode?
I don't think so. Maybe. um oh yeah, I should probably talk dating in high school. So searching for that. Couldn't My ability to have a healthy, meaningful relationship in high school was an utter disaster. uh,
Psychologically, I would think you might be searching for someone similar to your mom and then convince that person to love you.
oh
I mean, just that seems to be a
yeah,
cycle.
yeah, there's a whole lot of science behind that I don't even pretend to understand.
Right.
um, but I would say looking for acceptance and fear of just being pushed away. It was, and like you said, people like that tend to gravitate towards each other, and that was really tough. But yeah, my senior year, like I discussed last week, the opportunity to go to college and to be an athlete, to be a student athlete, more important, that opportunity reared its head, and uh, and then we were on to the next hurricane. So we'll get to that one next. That's a really, that's one of my dad's favorite stories, is that whole process of me graduating from high school, and the process that I had to go to all the way up to my senior year of college during the the Big Ten track and field championships, which were at Bloomington.
Oh, neat.
And I ended up, it's a great, it's one of his favorite stories. So we'll
And we
get to
need to
that
get
next
him
week.
on here
Oh
sometime
yeah.
too and
Oh
talk to
yeah.
Carrie.
Oh yeah.
I'd be fascinating to see what he saw when he saw this great athlete and then saw the signs of something's not healthy at home, something's
Yeah.
not up. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
he kind of started giving you
Yeah.
some of that
Yeah.
that you needed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it was exactly what I needed when I needed it. It yeah, it was,
I'm so
yeah,
glad that happened.
very blessed.
I'm really proud of you for sharing your parts of your difficult childhood with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it helps maybe parents that have had a hard childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, this helps you all.
Yeah.
Um, I would say just if you can, let it go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, your story is what you tell yourself, and you don't have to tell yourself that you're the victim. You can let things go and be the person you want to be. Sometimes you just got to let go of that baggage, and
Mm-hmm.
but that's hard. It's hard.
Very, very much easier said than done. Uh, which is why I'm sharing. This isn't fun. I don't. This isn't fun for me to expose these kinds of weaknesses, but it's very necessary because people need to know that there are other people out there who have been down the road that they may be on, and it's okay to reach out and help. But that being said, it requires one thing of each person, and that is to have humility, because it requires humility to reach out to people. No one can make you reach out. You have to swallow that pill. I don't know. You have to swallow that pride, and and accept that humility as the first step of your growth.
And that's hard. Like I didn't
Extremely
really
hard.
start doing it until the
Yeah.
last few years.
Yeah.
Really like late 30s, early 40s did I
Mm-hmm.
really start admitting, well, I could have handled something better, and that's okay. I can
Right.
forgive myself. I
Right.
don't have to be perfect. Once
Mm-hmm.
I got to the place where I don't have to be perfect,
Yeah.
I'm allowed to mess up.
Mm-hmm.
Then I could like say sorry and mean it,
Yes.
and then I could
Yeah.
be on a path of change.
Yes.
But I think a lot of humans get stuck and we don't
Oh.
know how to do that.
Oh yeah.
And then we take
Yeah.
a path that's more negative because if we're constantly in this battle of I never mess up,
Mm-hmm.
it takes
Yeah.
you down this gross path of, well, then you can't learn and grow and you get worse.
Yeah.
It gets
Yeah.
worse for you.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
And
You're
and I meet
absolutely
those
right. Yeah.
people and I'm like, darn, we can't, like, especially if I meet them in government. I'm like, oh, I don't know whether
Yeah.
I'm going to get any good positive change here because as a
Yeah.
person, you haven't figured this life lesson out. And
Yeah.
like when I'm on a journey for new friends, which I found a lot of new friends in the
Mm-hmm.
last few years, they really need to have that ability to be
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm not perfect. I've messed up. I've grown. And then they also need to have that ability of they love me no matter what, and I love them,
Yeah.
like in a no
Yeah.
judgment place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that so
Yeah.
it's nice to find those people, and
Mm-hmm.
they're out there, but there's a lot of people that still need to grow. So
Yeah.
you
And
know,
like we said, birds of a feather usually find each other. So if you are secure with who you are, if you know that you're on a constant journey to improve yourself, to better yourself, self honesty is massive. If you can't be truthful to yourself, and I found this out the hard way many times, if I can't be truthful to me, it is a cakewalk to be fake to everyone else. You know, so having that, being pro self accountable is very important, in order to be able to go in the direction that you want to go.
and I think you're still working on it, and I am too.
Oh yeah, it's a
But having
daily,
empathy
daily.
for yourself.
Yeah.
When you have empathy for yourself, it's a lot easier to have empathy for others.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have, I'm mad at myself because I messed up this time and I shouldn't have done that. And I'm so
Yeah.
stupid. And your thoughts are
Mm-hmm.
negative about yourself, then you're very judgmental and hard on other
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
whenever whenever you get that meanness, just realize, what are they thinking about themselves?
Hmm.
And come to
Yeah.
it from a place of empathy. I
Hmm.
always say, let the other people know you care about them,
Yeah.
and lower it a little bit, and
Yeah.
see if they can forgive themselves.
Hmm.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
we are not always kind to ourselves, but we can
No.
control our thoughts. So I work on
Yeah.
being kinder to myself than I used to be.
Oh, yeah. It's not easy. It's not
Especially
easy at
when you
all.
mess up, like say I mess up and make something harder for one of my kids, that's
Hmm.
harder.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
have to figure it out so
Yeah.
that I don't keep doing it.
Hmm.
And then also I don't want to be hard on somebody else that's dealing with
Right.
it. Life's hard. Yeah.
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 It's hard enough without us making it harder. There's a misconception out there that life is supposed to be this easy thing. If I had $1 million, life would be so much easier. You can't throw a stick in Hollywood and not hit a millionaire that doesn't have 1,000 problems.
Yeah.
So how much money you could be a billionaire or have 50 cents to your bank account. Everyone has problems. But just working inward and really looking inward, deciding what really makes me happy. What do I need to do to be the best version, not only for myself, but for everyone around me?
Right.
That's, you
I
can't
just
buy that.
I want to say how what an attractive quality it is for a man to be open and vulnerable. I need that in my relationship. I have that with my husband. I'm very lucky. And in today's society, I feel like it is very difficult for men to open up. They're told
Mm-hmm.
in this culture that in order to be manly, you keep everything inside and you be
Mm-hmm.
big, bad, and tough. And that's not what
Mm-hmm.
women want,
Yeah.
or a partner wants. We want vulnerability and openness and honesty so we can grow together. But we have to kind of ignore that culture. I think you doing this show really
Mm-hmm.
helps break that stereotype.
I hope so. And this is a learning. I'm still learning to y'all. I am
Me
no,
too.
I'm no perfection. All I'm doing is telling you what I did.
But the fact that you're willing to share it and open up is a very good start.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very wise and wonderful. And I just
Mm-hmm.
encourage all of you listening to find somebody that you trust and open up to them.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you're going to be able to grow and become a
Mm-hmm.
better version of yourself. And that's the journey I'm on. I'm trying to be the best version. I only compare myself to other versions of me. I try not to be judgmental and
Mm-hmm.
compare to other people. Um, but I think that's really
Yeah.
it's a really important thing that we could all work on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so join us next Monday
Next Monday.
around noon. We had the internet drop off right at noon. That was fun.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
why we were a few minutes late.
Yeah.
So we will be back next Monday, and we will tackle more of your college life.
Oh yeah.
I'm
That's
excited.
a doozy. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, y'all are gonna like that.
Yeah,
You're
so
gonna
I'm
like
excited
that.
to hear more.
Yeah.
I have a live episode tomorrow at noon. Get the word out about some things going on in Indiana. And Corinne's going to do her own special episode Thursday at 1. So that's something exciting. And then I've got new things lined up coming that I'm really, really excited about. I'm going to be talking to more people. I'm going to be talking to more guys a little bit similar to you too. I'll have
Yeah.
to tell you in the
Yeah.
end
Yeah.
who I met. So exciting things coming. I would like to thank everybody for watching. Hopefully this helped you.
Thank you so much for tuning in, guys.
Let Brian know. Comment, share. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe. It's one word, Project Next Movement. And please share this with a friend that you think might help. Any veterans out there. And then we're
Yes.
going to keep going. We'll share your whole story, and then we've got more things
Mhm.
coming after that. So
Yeah.
thanks for trusting us. Thanks for being my friend. And I hope
Thank
you
you.
guys have a wonderful rest of your day and week. And we'll see you next Monday.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
All right. Bye, everybody.